Hey, welcome to today's video. I hope you are good. If you are new to cryptocurrency and you want to learn more, hit that subscribe button and press that bell button. I teach cryptocurrency and I'm going to talk today about Bitcoin. $100 trillion asset class, possibly. Who knows? Let's talk about it. Hey, hi. Very short video this one. Buy Bitcoin. See you later. I'm only joking. Now, let's talk about it realistically. I'm very pro Bitcoin. I'm also a realist. I'm not the sort of people that are 100% Bitcoin and 0% alts that also going to die. A lot of alts will die like companies, but ultimately scalability, choice and market demand, and a tradable market obviously as well, kind of makes it alts are needed and required. But let's talk about Bitcoin. On the screen you can see here that Bitcoin has died 371 times, and the most recent was not too long ago, July 15. And there you go. And it seems to be the 15th for some, yeah. Interesting, but there's a lot of deaths, which is quite funny. Obviously, more mainstream it's got, the bigger attention it also receives. So, usually people are quite scared to talk about Bitcoin. Hi. If you go around and you're into Bitcoin, you're not really the sort of person to go around the work canteen and go, hey, I've just bought Bitcoin. And people are like, what have you done that for? They'll be like, oh, that's what you use on the dark web. That's used by criminals, criminality and all that pish. But ultimately, it's far from the truth. Now, let's talk about it in realistic terms. So I want to talk about a few things about Bitcoin that you may never have heard of before. But if you are new, that's okay. Remember, check the links below. You can start with me for £5 essentially, or 99 pence, depending on your skill level. Get educated. I am really passionate about this, and I honestly believe that if you buy Bitcoin, i.e. just keep buying Bitcoin, if you are putting a little bit away every month, if you've got money that you are just sitting in a savings account and you know that you can live off a certain amount of money every month, and you've got money to burn, instead of burning it on pizzas, instead of burning it on takeaways, instead of burning it on an expensive car, invest in Bitcoin. And I really mean that, because it doesn't matter the price. I'm going to come on to something or what people ultimately forget, so stick around and I'll be like, oh, hello, because it is interesting to think about it. So let's talk about the first thing I want to mention. Is there going to be another financial crash? So if you are unaware of how Bitcoin came around, 2008 recession, 2009 Bitcoin came about, and obviously from there on we have now got this absolute behemoth of a store of value that is really chugging away and is just only 10 years old. I'm going to compare this to another asset that's over 5,000 years old, and a one that we see every single day in the news and everywhere you look. Everywhere you look you see it, and I'm going to mention that in a minute. But I do believe that, now this is the UK Bank of England by the way, my country is knackered. Brexit, all kinds of unemployment, falling wages, it's a nightmare. And we are seen to be heading for this kind of element again. And also in the US you can see it with the interest yields that I mentioned a couple of days back. So what does this mean for Bitcoin? Well, it means an alternative store of value, like gold. And I think people will now be looking at ways and means to put their money and wealth somewhere else. And I think Bitcoin is going to be that solution. I also think some altcoins as well. But I'm not going to talk about altcoins today, because why not? So let's go about this. Now, you've got other elements here. Individual banks. I think the banking sector is going to go in for a little bit of a shock in the next 10 years. They've got to adapt to the faster means of payments and cheaper and fee related, because everyone is turning to cryptocurrency to send money. We all know that if you are sending money to someone in Australia, it's actually quicker for you to jump on a plane and do it, especially large sums of money, especially if people are struggling in that area, they don't have a bank account. But let's talk about it in realistic terms. If there's a financial market crash, and it is as bad as the last one, will we have issues with usage of money? I think we may do if the banks are really struggling with what they've got. I don't think the banks have enough money. I think it's a lot of built up debt, and in terms of the overall asset class of the whole world, in terms of money value, it's into the quadrillions, which is quite scary. But the multi kind of government, national, international, global, whatever debt you've got and want to consider, it's in the high 500 trillions, which is really scary. But Bitcoin isn't. Bitcoin is not that problem. So let's talk about a few things why Bitcoin is kind of cool. Now, you have got a controlled supply. Controlled supply is quite key. 21 million Bitcoin will be issued, and it's a de-inflationary model. Every 10 minutes a reward is given. So at the start it was 50 Bitcoin. So every 10 minutes 50 Bitcoin, 50 Bitcoin, 50 Bitcoin, 50 Bitcoin. It's like a beat in it. Then every 4 years it halves and it goes 25 Bitcoin, 25 Bitcoin, 25 Bitcoin. That is halving. That is how you introduce currency into the economy, and it's a de-inflationary method essentially, and it has that scarcity behind it. 2,100 years later, you've still got gold, and I'm going to mention gold. Gold has been around for donkey's years. Bitcoin's only been around for 10 years. Bitcoin versus gold. Now in 2141, the Bitcoin element of supply will end. When we're dead, when we're buried, when whatever happens with our children, grandchildren, dogs, cats, whatever, they will stop. Meaning, it'll be a self-sufficient supply, and it'll be already in the economy. Probably. But for me, we're comparing this to gold, and I think that is a real good comparison. Store of value versus store of value. The difference you've got with gold and Bitcoin is two elements. One, gold is worth 7 trillion market cap. Bitcoin's only worth about 200 billion. So a massive, massive difference, but the control of it is maybe the interesting part of it. Government can control elements of the gold supply, the gold production, all that good stuff, whereas with Bitcoin they cannot. It is decentralized, which is massive. Bitcoin cannot be stopped. It is decentralized. It cannot be changed, altered, amended, or whatever. It cannot be set away from its core values, with its supply, for example, with its block sizes, with how it genuinely runs, with or without a overall leader, which is absolutely brilliant. So I'm hoping I'm encouraging you a little bit to look a bit more into Bitcoin, but some other cool facts to tell you about. Bitcoin is also a payment method. Not the greatest, I'll be honest, but 9 years ago, this article's a little bit old, but 9 years ago, a programmer purchased 2 Papa John's pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoins. At the time, it was worth $30. A lot of people have lost a lot of Bitcoin. A lot of people are bitter and a bit upset, and I think I would be too if I was negligent. If you believed in an asset back in those days when you were mining it for a lot of money on a computer with very limited scarcity and like difficulty adjustment, you have to take care of it because it's now worth a lot of money. So obviously here, you know, Bitcoin, 10,000 of them. I'll have some pizzas. It's a cool experiment. Let's be honest, it's a thing that gets everyone talking about pizza for one day of the year. That's what Bitcoin's all about. So, another thing to remember, and I mentioned at the start, this is overlooked so many times when people are looking at investing. People look at the all-time highs, at the all-time lows, and just to highlight this, it's key that you remember the journey of Bitcoin. There's only 1 year where it's been lower than the previous, and that was due to the Mt. Gox scandal. I'm not going to talk too much about that, it's gone, buried years ago. But that is also one of the biggest risks of why education is key when you're holding cryptocurrency assets. Do not hold them on exchanges. Buy them, invest in a ledger or other wallets, etc. and seriously think about what you are doing with your wealth. And I would start planning. If you have got a lot of assets in the stock market, if you've got a lot of assets elsewhere and you do not know what to do with them, start looking at cryptocurrencies. Not as in blow your load all over them. Do real research and do real learning because it is massively important. But I do honestly believe long term we will bridge the gap. I don't think we'll surpass gold in my lifetime. I think that'll be quite a stretch, because I think gold will also grow in value if there is a recession. But most importantly, I want to say this. I think cryptocurrencies are here to stay. I also think the altcoins are here to stay. I'm a realist. I do think that altcoins are required, just not as many as we think. Even if there's 50 altcoins in one Bitcoin and each altcoin's used for something else, either a utility, payments, or privacy, or even something as simple as, you know, a bridge between certain things to make things faster, such as banking, i.e. XRP, it's key for the whole industry to grow. So that's my overall take. But that is me talking about Bitcoin. Why I think there's a massive catalyst here of trillions of dollars going into it over time. People are very, very impatient. With a 10-year project right now, it's going to be at least a 1,000-year project, I think. And we're not going to be here to see the full evolution of it. But ultimately, I think we could, early adopters, make a lot of money from it. I still think $10,000 for Bitcoin, retrospect, is pretty good value. If I'm going to be honest with you, when you take into consideration the value of it, what it's used for, and its overall market capitalization. There's a lot of money that needs to find Bitcoin. Are you willing to wait for it to find it? Or will you be that person who finds the top of that wave, rides it, and hits the floor with it? Because that's what usually happens when the money goes into it. So there you go, that's today's video. A bit of a deep one, a bit of a let's talk about Bitcoin, but ultimately it does need to be addressed. Too many people are sitting on their hands, too many people are waiting for it to moon and then buy into it. Don't be that person. Educate yourself first, find your entry point and stick to your guns and accumulate. Do not risk what you cannot afford, but ultimately the main element is learn what Bitcoin is all about.